The first morning when you wake up, it's just like, oh gosh, we're in Africa. Like, can you believe this?
I had never stepped foot outside of the U.S.
Africa was always somewhere I wanted to go.
This was my out of the fishbowl experience.
It's about communities reaching out to each other. It's a human being interested in another human being's life.
It was something that was meaningful and purposeful.
It was a very moving experience.
Beautiful.
It was amazing.
Inspirational.
I could never see the world the same way anymore.
Any chance I get, I'd go back to Africa.
The U.S. Africa Study Tour program is a study tour that was historically put together by Dr. Shirley Jones in the School of Social Welfare about 10, 11 years ago now. And so it's an academic program that has a study tour attached to it.
We went to Africa to study three areas.
HIV, gender rights, and child welfare.
The intention of the course is to understand what social service delivery looks like.
And I think that's really important, especially as, a social worker.
And we go to various countries in Africa. This past year, we went to Ethiopia and South Africa.
It took forever to get there, but we got there safe and sound when the first time was Ethiopia.
I have a teaching appointment at Addis Ababa University, and I thought it a lovely opportunity to bring the American students to meet my Ethiopian students.
So we visited the University of Addis Ababa.
It's a very nice campus.
The main administration office was a former palace.
It was beautiful architecture.
We went and we met with the dean of the School of Social Welfare.
The dean at the university talked about
how the school started from a very small entity and then has grown relatively quickly.
We were very impressed.
One thing that I noticed,
there are a lot more male students in the School of Social Welfare there.
Yes, it's all men. Whereas here, the men are few and far between in the social work program.
I found that interesting.
I mean, that's a huge, you can see the cultural barriers there, definitely.
That was one of the big things to understand going to Africa, is the difference between gender rights.
So that's just an interesting observation.
One of the places we went to was a fistula hospital.
A fistula occurs because there is not sufficient prenatal care, and the bodies of these young girls are not prepared to give birth to a child.
So they're very sick, very in need of help.
We went primarily to meet with the women to understand the reality of what has happened to them.
It gives the students an opportunity to see what does social justice look like, what does compassion look like, and what does it mean to provide these services for people who would otherwise die in the absence of them. Having our students see what that looks like is an extraordinary moment for them.
It was emotional.
Put a real impact on you.
It was wonderful to go to a place where you could see that there was help for these folks.
And it makes me want to advocate more for health care and want to advocate more for education, because that's the only way out.
Mount Entoto was definitely an emotional, overwhelming, powerful experience.
So here's this community that has opened the doors to people living with HIV.
And they believe that if you are baptized with this holy water, that it will rid you of HIV and AIDS.
So part of us going up there was to actually just talk to the people in the community.
Us to give them that experience of meeting people who have those kinds of opportunities.
We started to look around and we were just being surrounded by people.
They say to us, well, what are you going to give us in return for the information that we gave you?
We realized that we needed to sort of readdress what we were doing there.
So I had to regroup with the students, and I had to find out from them what they wanted to do, because I certainly could not compel them to give anything.
So we took it upon ourselves to do a donation, making a collection.
We had some goods that we had brought, clothing and whatnot.
And you just saw hundreds and hundreds of people lined up.
It was touching in one sense, and then in another sense it was just like, oh, I wish I could do so much more.
So that was sort of unsettling for me, and understanding how little I could do.
I remember then thinking, what else can I get out of my bag?
They needed so much more, but they were thankful for the little bit that we were able to provide for them.
The one thing I am struck by is when the event started, it was really gray and overcast.
It was dark, it was gloomy.
And drizzling, and there was mud, and all that stuff was going on.
By the time we reached the last person,
the only thing I can tell you is that it stopped raining.
The sun came out, everyone had smiles on their face.
I had to take a deep breath because it moved me, and I'm like, okay, I need a minute. I'll be back. It was an extraordinary moment.
When we went to South Africa,
We went to Robben Island.
which is where a lot of the political prisoners were held. So Nelson Mandela actually stayed on Robben Island.
This was a place that represented suffering, injustice, bondage, and all of that. And then now it's a museum.
You realize that President Mandela did what he did so that the stories of apartheid will be a history lesson.
And that gave me hope.
We met the most amazing woman in Johannesburg,
Guatemala.
Uitumelo.
Guatemala.
she was actually one of the individuals who took part in the Soweto uprising.
One of the most beautiful souls I've ever met.
She gave us her first-hand experience.
She got really welled up and started crying, and she just explained to us how her childhood was taken from her, and she doesn't regret any of it.
She wasn't feeling sorry for herself. But she, was very willing to discuss like how she sacrificed her youth for the movement.
She read her poem to us.
It's a beautiful piece.
Only their quest for freedom and justice kept them holding the ground upon which you are standing.
It was something that was coming from the depth of her soul.
And it was such a deep part of herself that it just couldn't not touch you deeply too.
The palpability of that moment was breathtaking.
Everybody was just bawling. She expressed to us how important we were to her. She gave us African names.
She gave me Uitumelo, which means joy.
She was just a beautiful person.
We loved her.
And in the moment, I think we got what the intention of Shirley Jones's idea was in this whole trip. It is understanding the human connections that will build stronger communities.